Clemson's finally healthy, and that changes everything for 2025. It's the biggest story coming out of Dabo Swinney's Media Day, and we'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're new to the show, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You know how we do it here on Locked On. If you're an everydayer, you get exclusive Clemson content all throughout the week, and you can follow me over on X in between episodes at The Morgan T Show, where we talk about all things Clemson whenever and however you want. We got some really good reports coming out of the Dabo Swinney media press conferences that started this week, because we're getting started with fall camp coming up in August. And so the coaches are getting back in town. The media is starting to cover them. We're getting a chance to interview them. And a lot of things are kind of coming up ahead to kind of give us a little glimpse of what we might see for fall camp and for the 2025 season. Clemson has a surprisingly clean bill of health heading into fall camp. And, you know, we'll talk about what that means for the battles on the roster, what that means for the competition between different players on certain positions that I know you're really looking out for, and how this could really help Clemson last. You know, it's all about lasting throughout the entire season. It's not just about winning that first game against LSU. Even though that one is a very exciting game that we're all looking forward to, that's not the only thing that we're here for when it comes to college football. We have a whole 2025 season to go through, 12 regular season games, a championship game, hopefully, and then a playoff game, multiple playoff games. So it's a much longer season than we're used to in the past. And you have to be able to manage your roster appropriately, but keep them as healthy as possible as you rotate through, while still keeping yourself competitive on the field. And I think just having a healthy team to start into fall camp, this is something that, if you really think about it, if you've been following Clemson for a long time like I have, when is the last time that you felt like Dabo has been able to come out and say that his team is healthier, or is at its healthiest, where he only mentioned like two players? And I can't even think of in years that the last time that he's been able to come out and say, hey, we only have a couple, two by name, that are still returning their way back from or recovering from injury. And they're not like just recently having an injury, they're recovering from those injuries. So it's something that happened in the fall, and they're still kind of coming back from that. To me, you've seen the past couple of seasons where we've went through spring and we've went through fall, and, you know, they haven't been as healthy as you'd like for them to be. But the good thing is now it seems like Clemson is in a really good spot as far as their depth and as far as health is concerned. And he flagged two players that he mentioned for their recoveries from ACL injury. That would be Jay Haynes and Ari Watford. Jay Haynes being the running back / kickoff returner, that we were really excited about seeing more of. But when it comes to a running back, you never know how they're going to recover from ACL. Really, any player, ACL injuries, I've had two myself, but ACL injuries take some time to come back from, not just physically, but mentally being able to trust yourself, because there's that injury that happened that you weren't expecting, and that kind of derailed you for multiple months. When it comes to college football, you don't have much time to prove yourself. And so being able to mentally recheck back in and get back to a level where you're competing at the highest level you were prior to injury is a difficult thing to do. But Dabo Swinney said that both those players are doing great. I think Ari Watford would be good to rotate in as a defensive end position if he can get healthy quickly and recover quickly. I don't want to rush anybody back from anything, but defensive end would be an area where I'd like to see more depth. Running back, they do have depth, but who is going to step up as the superstar? That's the big question for 2025. Jay Haynes was one of those guys we all cared about. We wanted to see be in that role, but post injury, what will happen? Now, the thing is, I love how healthy they are, because you're going to be able to get the most detailed install for that LSU game this fall. And you're going to be as prepared as possible. If they continue to stay this healthy throughout fall, with avoiding those jersey limitations of the yellow and the green and the red, you'll be able to get better evaluations of your talent, because in the fall, they really go much, much harder than they went in the spring to get you ready for that first game of the season. It really, to me, will help the coaches understand what their true competition is between, first string and second string. And maybe first string is more in stone or more understood, but second and third string, that's where some changes could happen now, because you have a lot of guys in the mix to really see who's going to step up and be ready for those Saturday games, and kind of really understand, not just necessarily being thin as far as health is concerned. Injuries make you thin, right? But I'm saying thin in a sense of talent-wise. Because they're healthy, you'll be able to evaluate better, and then you'll be able to determine and distinguish between where you have a talent gap, possibly a little bit more than if they're on the bench. You really don't know if you're on the medical bench. You don't really get any kind of evaluation of them, any assessment. So you really truly don't know what you're going to get when they become healthy. Well, thankfully, it seems as Clemson is heading into the fall in exactly the area that the level of health that you would want. Again, I mentioned Jay Haynes and Ari Watford. Those are two guys we're looking to see continue to grow back in. But he also mentioned Elyjah Thurmon. He had an ankle injury that limited him, has not seen a lot of practice in the spring. Collin Sadler also had a season-ending injury last season. He was limited in the spring, which, kind of allowed some newer guys to get into that rotation of the offensive line. But those guys, to me, being available in the fall will kind of ramp up competition as well, because I think that those two guys, Elyjah Thurmon and Collin Sadler, are guys that I feel like have proven a lot already on the field. And so getting them back, you're not really determining talent. You're more or less determining, where they fit into this rotation, because they have the talent. Getting those healthy bodies in there means more flexibility at the offensive line as well, because that's also a great advantage as the season continues. Another guy that he mentioned was Olsen Patt-Henry, coming back from his shoulder injury that he had. He's doing great. To me, he's the guy that replaces Jake Brainingstool. He's the guy that is your top guy in the tight end room alongside Josh Sapp. You want those two veterans in there to kind of solidify themselves, allowing Christian Bentancur and Logan Brooking and maybe even Ian Shefflin to get some situational matchups. But to me, Olsen Patt-Henry could be a weapon that no one talks about, as long as he stays healthy and he can get into that rotation. And the same goes for Josh Sapp as well. National contenders like Clemson have to be able to stay healthy as the schedule tightens up, as we continue throughout 2025. That's when the pretenders versus the contenders are separated. And it's separated in a lot of ways by the depth you have on your team. So healthy fall camp reps will help create a competitive environment, will help Clemson be better, the coaches be better to evaluate, and overall, hopefully unlock a higher ceiling for Clemson in 2025. So great news from Dabo Swinney to start us off from Media Day. We'll get into more of what Dabo Swinney let us know about. Specifically, I know an update you all have been really, really waiting on, and that is the punting position. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I'm looking at some of the matchups over on FanDuelResearch.com, and there's a lot of stuff that are talking about coming into this NFL season and who you project who will have a good season in 2025. Not just the NFL, though. There's some things you can get into with college football, and who do you think the Heisman Trophy candidates are? We've got Cade Klubnik, of course, but maybe it's DJ Lagway is your favorite. Maybe it's Ryan Williams. There's a lot of things you can get in on, even though it's preseason for football. You can get in on it now. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can go to FanDuel.com and bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Clemson has a national title ceiling, yet we know that one of the biggest potential for error or concern is that unestablished or lack of established punter. Yes, you heard it right from me. I am with you. I understand the biggest need on Clemson football team is not the head coach. It's not the quarterback. It's not the wide receivers. It's not the defensive line, not the offensive line. It is the punter. Special teams under preseason scenarios are definitely under a bigger microscope than maybe during the season. Honestly, during the season, it probably gets even more frustration as you see the culmination of where Clemson really is or not. We know that Clemson went out and recruited and put on scholarship a guy named Jack Smith. He has a slight edge, and he is right now possibly the starter. But have we seen much of him? No. The little bit we've seen has been not as exciting as we were hoping for. So what do we got next? Well, Will McCune is in the fight. He's, a walk-on guy that we don't know much about. I can't really give you any insights about him. But he's on the team. He's in the rotation there. You have veteran place kicker Robert Gunn III. He wants to get in and be a part of that as well. The hidden yards and the momentum flip, that's what could be the difference in a heavyweight matchup. And we know that Clemson has one in game 1 against LSU. They have one against South Carolina at the end of the season, and they'll possibly have one or two during the season in these ACC teams that have reloaded themselves. So the stability at the punter position is still important. Under Aiden Swanson, you had stability. Under Will Spires, you had stability. But Swanson, kind of lacked consistency, even though you knew he would go out there. Jack Smith enters the spring as the favorite, but the stability is not so much there because we really don't know what we're going to get from him. We don't know much about Robert Gunn. He came out as the place kicker, but now he's going to try a punter. We also know that Clemson has brought in, to every fan's surprise and excitement, a former soccer player, goalie, who, place kick or goalies are known for having big time, massive punts down the field, changing field position quickly. Charlie Reed, Ian Reed's brother, is a walk-on to continue to add to the level of competition at the punting position. Now, Dabo Swinney also came out and made a joke about it as well. Whether you like this or not, a lot of fans wanted Clemson to go into the transfer portal for punter. Dabo Swinney said he didn't feel the need to do so. But he jokingly said, you can blame him if the punting's bad, because he understands that they need to get it right, but he still trusts the guys he has on his team. So, he's giving you full authority to complain if the punter does not go past 30 yards, if they're not able to pin anybody deep. Who knows what we're going to get from this position, honestly. This could be, unfortunately, one of the bigger headlines of the 2025 season, and it could go either way. It could be, hey, Clemson is finally able to really put stress on those opposing offenses because of the ability to flip the field, or it could be Clemson's offense now has all the stress on them because if they don't get far enough down the field, even if they're sputtering, they need to get further down the field because the punter can't flip the field on anybody. Field position becomes either less stressful or more stressful when you have a punter. Honestly, your offense doesn't feel like they need to be perfect when you have a punter that can do that. Now, everybody says, well, Morgan, if you have an explosive offense that just nobody can stop, then there's no problem. Well, that's true, but in more often than not, has Clemson or have teams always been able to be so explosive that no one can stop? Maybe in a regular season game, maybe in an ACC game, yes. Maybe in those elite teams that Clemson had that went to the national championship, yes. But do you feel like this team is so explosive that no one can stop? I'm still not sure yet. I do feel like they have a lot of those weapons there. But field position is important. Punting is not going to be something that we need to push away, or it could rear its head at the moment where you don't want it. Reliability at those 40-yard punts, reliability inside the 20, that's what we want to see from the punting position. Now, Jack Smith leads currently. He was a highly recruited guy. He got a scholarship. He's a little bit ahead. He's got that pedigree. They feel as if when they put him under stress, he still has that edge against those other guys. But you've got walk-on guy in McCune who's been putting some pressure on and has been competing. So you have that as well. And then Robert Gunn and Charlie Reed are those guys who will kind of have to see the throw the hat in the ring type guys who, will see what happens. But I do feel that whatever they can do in the fall to get away from the inconsistencies, the volatility, that will be good for me. They need to do something to make it less stressful on the offense. And whoever it may be that ends up on top. And I will be honest with you. He's given us free rein to complain if this doesn't work out. He's obviously shown, he being Dabo Swinney, has shown he'll go to the transfer portal now. So if this is a gap still, which is kind of unfortunate because you really have your probably most complete team that you're going to have until maybe 2027. I don't think 2026 is going to be your most complete team, but because you're going to be completely changing quarterback position. 2027 will probably be another complete team. So you're going to have a little bit of a gap there. And I just hope that it's not the punter that ruins the day, ruins the season for everyone. Now, again, it may not ruin the season in the sense of one play. I think the offense still holds, true to being responsible. Ultimately, the offense and defense are responsible ultimately, but it goes back to the level of stress. When you don't have to stress as much, you can play a little bit more free. You can call plays a little bit more freely. When you have a punter that can flip the field and stress out the other opposing offense and then kind of give you an opportunity to reset and give your defense an opportunity to kind of rile everyone up and pin people deep and keep them deep. Hidden yards As you've said many times in my comments and messaged me over on X, hidden yards win championships. And you need someone that you can trust. Doesn't have to be the best punter in the country, but you need someone you can trust to flip the field consistently. And Clemson, do they have that or not? It's still, unfortunately, still a big question mark for all of us. All right, everybody. So I'm going to finish up the show with the final segment. We're going to discuss Cade Klubnik. You know, he's had a lot of criticism over the past couple of seasons, but he's also had a lot of hype going into 2025. And Dabo Swinney mentioned how important it is for him to be sharp and avoid the noise in a different way for this season. Can you believe it? We're 2025 and the Heisman chatter is now around Cade Klubnik. You know, it is interesting to see how we've kind of gone from the initial frustrations of Cade. As we mentioned on the radio on Mickey Plyler's show, he and I joked about how it was like having a brand new puppy. You know, he was cute and cuddly, and he'd do all the things that you love from a puppy, but he'd also pee on the rug and you know, make you really frustrated and eat part of the couch. You know, so he had to deal with some criticism and frustration his first couple of seasons. Now that he's made that advancement in his skill and his talent level, he now needs to be more precise, according to Dabo Swinney. He's already proven to me that he can ignore the noise from me, from other talking heads, from my passing charts that are out there. You know, there's a lot of critics and frustration that comes from being the quarterback and seeing results or seeing decisions being made one way or another. Cade has done a really good job of ignoring the critics, and he needs to keep that same discipline in 2025. Now that we're going to be complimenting him a little bit more because he made such a good advancement in 2024, and he started to show in situational awareness. He started to show, instead of panic, more of doing what was expected. When stress arises and you encounter it, what are you going to do? Are you going to panic, or are you going to respond in a way that was expected? Cade in 2024 responded in a way that was expected more often than not. And that discipline on the field was hand in hand with his discipline of ignoring the critics off the field. Now in 2025, he's one of the front runners for the Heisman. His very first game of the season is going to be two Heisman candidates, two of the best quarterbacks in the country facing off against each other. Will he rise to the occasion? Will he be able to meet those expectations and also meet his expectations? Where will Cade Klubnik's ceiling actually end up being? How sharp will he be? You know, some people, even Dabo mentioned that Clemson, possibly of all the portal positions that you need, maybe it was Cade Klubnik that needed to be replaced from the portal. I don't think that I ever got to a point where I said Cade needed to be replaced from the portal or they needed to get someone else. I could understand the reason why that people, I think from 2024, preseason 2024, I think where it was a conversation was more along the lines of Cade needed someone more than Christopher Vizina to push him. He needed someone to really stress him out and get him to be more precise, as Dabo Swinney has mentioned is one of his goals. I don't think anybody really doubted Cade's ability to win or doubted Cade's ability to be talented, but to win the big game, to not make a mistake in the critical moments. He does have that Heisman hype, but my problem is, as I mentioned to you, he still has to win that big game. I don't think he's really got over the hump of being able to win the big game, the marquee game, not the ACC championship. Yes, he has won that twice. I get that. But he won it last season with the expense of losing your 3 hardest games on your schedule, your 4 hardest games on your schedule, including Texas. So he had 4 games in the regular season and postseason that he lost. And it wasn't just his fault, but being the quarterback, you have that stigma around you, and you have that responsibility and that label that you can't win your hardest games of your schedule. But he won the ACC championship game. The first ACC championship game that he won, he was replacing DJ Uiagalelei. So, that was a good one for sure. But the Tar Heels had a lot of players that were lost due to the transfer portal and injury. So Cade needs, and he will have many opportunities in 2025 to win that game. How will he become the best version of himself? How will he show up? If he shows up, blocks out all the praise now, like Dabo is saying. I love how Dabo also mentioned it's either your fire or your fuel. You never want positive praise, all that praise from the outside, or all that criticism from the outside to become your fire. You are anchored on a fire. That is your why. That is your ultimate goal. That's your main reason for motivation. That is your anchor. That is your goals, your values, your belief system. That's your fire. You can't let the criticism from me or anybody else or fans or whoever, or even the praise from me, fans and whoever, to be your fire, because that fire is going to go up and down every single game. I mean, that's what we do as fans, as reporters, whatever. We are very critical, very, up and down depending on the performance. Cade can't do that. He has to have his fire, his why, his goals, his values be consistent. But as Dabo mentioned, the fuel to that fire is what's so important. I love that from him, because you take a little fuel here and there. When I make a mistake or someone criticizes me, I can't let that ruin my entire day. I can't let that get me off of my ultimate goal. I have to keep moving forward towards my ultimate goal and use that criticism as added to the fire as a way to refine myself. And it kind of goes back to Dabo Swinney saying, now it's time for consistency. Now it's time for the mental filter to be consistent, and for that technical precision to show up. So point to me, stay consistent inside your head. Let the outside talk stay on the outside. Let it be the fuel, but not the fire. His challenge is to take that energy and convert it into constant practice, film hours, and reps and quality. We know that he can handle criticism. I love what we got from him in 2024. How will he be able to handle the praise in 2025, or the high expectations, even higher expectations in 2025? It's up to him. And the technicalities behind it, of him using that to be more precise. Cade reduced a lot of negative plays in 2024. He used his legs much better in 2024. 2025 now is to hit those placements, hit those reads, make those decisions quicker, get the ball out on time and where you wanted it. Punish the defense, the poor concepts from the defense, punish the poor alignment from the safeties and the cornerbacks, and be as efficient as possible to leverage your accuracy, your precision, and ultimately get that tempo higher to be able to really take down the best of the best. It's not just Cade also helping, because, we talked about one of the things of people saying, well, this is why I want a backup quarterback. This is why I want a portal quarterback. And a lot of people said, and myself included, a portal quarterback for backup to push Cade. Well, one of the reasons why you also probably don't need that anymore, or never really needed that, is because Christopher Vezina has taken a bulk of the second team reps, and he did great in the spring game. He's had a noticeable jump according to the coaching staff after the bowl game. Dabo says he wants to get him more real game reps in 2025 because he's going to be 2026's guy. I truly believe that. I think Tate Reynolds is going to possibly be the next guy, but Christopher Vizina will be the first next guy, the first man up. Having him as confident and as poised as possible as a number 2 will relieve some of the pressure from the entire team, but also have Cade continue to need to step up and hold a standard. So I love what I'm hearing from Dabo at the beginning of this season. We got a ton to get into. We have interviews from all the coaches that I need to go over. The rest of this hour-long interview with Dabo Swinney. This is just the beginning, and we're getting started now into the 2025 college football season. I know you're excited about it. I'm excited about it. It is really, really great to be a part of Locked On. Thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.